Good afternoon and welcome everybody to this deep dive high quality Arabic foods in Dutch supermarkets as part of the Taste for Change program organized by the Flevo Campus and Food Cabinet. For the next 45 minutes I'll be your host. My name is Maarten Kuiper and I'll be talking with Nadia Zerouali.
Yeah,
welcome.
that's me.
That's you. You are many things. We were just talking about this, all the different roles that you have in your professional life, among which people may know you from your cookbooks that you've written. You're on TV with 24 Kitchen and with Binnenste Buiten.
Yeah, because 24 Kitchen is a long time ago.
Yeah. Binnenste Buiten, Inside Out is a really great program. I think you really enjoy making it as well, right?
Yeah, it's great. Really, you get a real taste of the Netherlands.
Yeah, so you go to farmers and
producers, smaller and bigger.
Yeah,
countryside, cities, young people, older people. Yeah,
great. And then also involved right now with the Golden Cookbook Awards. So
tomorrow,
so many things. I was very impressed with how you managed to do so many things in the limited time that you have.
I'm lucky that I have a son who is 16 already and who is quite independent.
Yes.
And a really fantastic babysitter.
And that also helps. I have an 8-month-old back home right now, as you know, which is quite a handful.
And then you can't live your life like I live it. Yeah. That's for sure.
Before we continue, it's possible to ask questions in the chat. I will get that on my iPad over here. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them, and we will try to get to all of them. Nadia, today is about Taste for Change. So I was hoping we could dive into those two big words, what they mean to you. So to start off with taste, in all the different things that you do professionally, what does taste mean? What's the value of taste there?
Yeah, for me, taste is the basic, the foundation of everything that I do. Because I really believe that if it isn't of good taste, either in the literal or in the figurative meaning of the word, like taste is the basis. If it doesn't taste well or good, or it doesn't feel good, then it won't work.
Yeah.
So taste is like the center of it.
That's like the primary focus of everything that you are.
Yeah, it can be healthy, it can be locally, it can be organic, it can be whatever. If it's not tasty and it doesn't taste good, then we can't proceed.
Yeah, so that's interesting. If we later on we'll talk about the products that you have in Dutch supermarkets with Soek and with Fairtrade Original. I would be interested to hear how you would, how do you end up with the taste that you put in the supermarket? And because this is not, this is a Dutch group of consumers mostly.
Yes.
So we'll get into that later. Maybe first, then change. Also, such a big word. What are changes in society that you hope to contribute to?
I see myself shifting from being somebody coming out of the l'école hôtelière, hotel school, and focusing on gastronomy and then only on the good taste side of gastronomy, and focusing only on good food, delicious food, and not so much on the whole social and other sides, heritage, social, community side of food. And now the change that I made in my life goes a bit together with all the changes that we see in society. So more towards that everybody needs a seat at the table, and not only a seat, but a decisive seat at the table, and also focusing more on what are we and who are we as a Dutch culinary playing field, or who are we and what is important, what is Dutch food and who contributes to the Dutch cuisine, and what's our role within the Dutch food scene and food cuisine, and also what is our role as Dutch within the world of food. So
This is about representation.
Yeah, it shifted more from my own role as somebody who loves food and prepares food to a bigger, I hope, a bigger view on food.
And what has driven that change in your own perspective? Are there specific moments or conversations or people that have influenced you there?
I think there are several. I think one of the most important one is that when I became a mother, it's like I think it's quite a normal way of changing your food habits, changing your worldview the moment that you become a parent. So that was a decisive moment. Then you had the election of Wilders and his comments on Moroccan Dutch citizens in the Netherlands. That was really a moment that changed it a lot for me. And what more? Traveling. I think the travels for my cookbooks that I did mostly together with Marijn, with whom I have the Souk brand as well. I think those three are like the major changes in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe to quickly stop at because you had an interaction with Geert Wilders a few years back, right? During the election time.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
last
invited him for a meal together to talk about your differences in opinion.
Yeah, and then he said no, thank you.
To the couscous.
To the couscous.
Yeah.
But he said he wanted to talk, and afterwards, I really did my best to get in touch with him and his. I don't know how you call it in Dutch, but he has a zaakwaarnemer, like
a representative.
A representative, and I called him the first time. He didn't know that it was me, so he picked up the phone, and afterwards they stopped.
Oh.
Yeah.
Work in progress.
Yeah, but before that, I was together with Samuel Levy from Food Cabinet and a couple of others. We were part of Iedereen.
Yeah.
And with that was also like quite, we were really going into changing the Dutch society towards the elections 4 years ago. Yeah.
And this is then a very specific example with Geert Wilders that you use food as an inviting way to start a conversation. Have you always felt that you could use food and you could use taste to work on these changes that you would?
Yeah, I think even as a child, I don't think that I knew it in my mind. It's just I saw it happening. Like my mom used to bake bread every morning, open the window, of course, to get the heat out of the kitchen, and then every time small children would collect at the window asking for her bread, her Moroccan bread. And at the schoolyard, or how do you go, the schoolplein, I could always change my Moroccan bread for all the Dutch luxury foods that I couldn't get, like Granny Smith apples and liga's and so on. So that was one. Then my neighbor, who would always say, Fadila, I'm coming for a cup of coffee. So he gave her time to put on her veil, and then he came in for a cup of coffee. So as a child, growing up in a very white village, being the only Moroccan girl in the neighborhood and at school, I saw that food was the perfect way to be Moroccan and be part of the society that you live in and that you are in, and at the same time interact, change, talk, be part of change, everything at the same time, just with simple bread.
Yeah.
So I think that was like the seed that's planted in my system, that I know not only in my mind, but also like I've lived it. That you can see that it's really, it's not. They say food is verbinder. Food brings people together, but it can be like a hollow cliche. But it's really, it is. Of course, it can bring fights, it can bring discussions, but it most definitely can bring people together.
Yeah.
And still remaining your true self. So it's not that you have to let it go or disappear or not enjoy that taste anymore. You can still keep it and be part of
And you've been working for quite a while, writing the cookbooks, being on TV, working professionally, but also trying to get more people a seat at the table. How do you feel are we making progress in that regard?
Yeah, because I've really seen the discussions shift. Before it was like, look at us, we eat sambal, and I know the meaning of couscous. I know couscous, so I'm integrated Dutch white person, or I'm part of the Dutch society because I eat pancakes. It was like very basic, and now you can see it changing, having discussions on what is Dutch food culture. It's not only sambal is not only yours or only mine or only for the Indonesian people in the Netherlands. No, it's part of who we all are. And if we acknowledge that, then we have to acknowledge the history that comes with it, the discrimination that comes with it, colonization that comes with it. So it's broadened now. It's not so simple anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's really like a big change.
Which is also a little bit confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's always before change comes confusion, because before that it was like really divided in segments and nobody interacted. It was like the 70s. It was okay if you were Moroccan, just don't mess with me. And now, no, I'm Moroccan and Dutch. Like it's a big difference.
Yeah.
And before you get there, you have to rub a bit and fight a bit and
have some friction.
Without it, nothing will happen. Yeah.
And you're not someone who tries to avoid the friction.
Oh no, I'm the oldest of 6 children. You need to fight, and you need to make order and fight for your spot at the table. So no. If you do it politely, a good fight is really nice to do.
Yeah. And that's a skill that you have.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, I think that I can. Yeah, I don't avoid discussions or difficult subjects, and I know that I can do it. So I won't offend you that quickly, and I will always try to look at my own mistakes or things that I don't do well. So I won't be the one like only pointing the finger. No. Yeah. Because we are all humans, we all make mistakes. Nobody does it perfectly. So if you keep that in mind, then a discussion is easier. Yeah.
So if we have a look at, for instance, the products with Marijn that you have in the Dutch supermarket Souk.
Yeah.
So herbs, spices, different products that people can cook with.
Yeah.
What was that skill that we just spoke about? Was that necessary to use in the process of getting that product in the supermarket? Could you tell us a little bit, how did you end up?
In the supermarket? Yeah, I think it's really nice story because we never planned on having a product line at the supermarkets. It started from writing those cookbooks, bringing home with us the most delicious ingredients, having workshops with Dutch people here in the Netherlands, and then they would ask, where can I get this stuff? And then we realized that in the Dutch supermarket, but even in the Turkish Moroccan shops, they didn't sell the right quality that people cook with at home. So it was always like a C or a D quality product. And people from the first generation, like my parents, would go to Morocco or Lebanon or whatever and buy it and take it home with them. So there was a big gap in quality, what you could get from the Arabic products. So then we said, well, let's give it a try. Let's try to sell those products here that we really got to know in the countries themselves. So like our pomegranate molasses, that's now at the big supermarket. We knew it from writing our first cookbook, and that was 2007. And that same family that we visited for the pomegranate molasses is still the family that sells us the molasses for in the shops. So it came from a different view. So it didn't come from, we want to sell those products to the Dutch people in the supermarket, but we wanted our readers and the people that cook from our books or workshops to have access to those products.
So then you see that there's maybe a market for
Yeah.
those products, or you know for certain that there is a market, and that I think a lot of people will also have that instinct. But then the next step, actually ending up in the supermarket.
That's a whole different story because now, and that's why I think it's so important to give people that, again, that seat at the table. And I use it as a metaphor because we talk about food and then seat at the table is a nice one. If I didn't have the chance to write for FIFA magazine and be asked to do 24 Kitchen, and because of 24 Kitchen we got a book signing contract. If we didn't had all those steps, I would never had the chance to have a product line at the Albert Heijn, because now the product line, no, because we had famous names. Our first partner, Vanilla Venture, was interested to do this with us. So we didn't have to find investors or loan a big amount of money at a bank, but they partnered with us. So that was like a small beginning, and we started at Markt with the Kuipers. That's quite small. And because we started there and we could show that it was like profitable and people bought our stuff, then Albert Heijn came to us and asked whether we wanted to make an Arabic product line for them. So it's a whole different starting game.
So you weren't knocking on the door at Albert Heijn?
No. And also because it was that way and not the other way around, we found people that were happy to partner with us, and that, like with Brand M, that's the other part of Nadia and Marijn Soek, we gave them a part of our shares, and for their part of the shares, they invested in Nadia and Marijn Soek, because how much, even if you have a very big salary, you won't be able to have a product line at the supermarket. It's not doable. So when people tell me, like, why is it so important to be part of the jury for the Golden Cookbook tomorrow? It's because I know what it can bring you if you are acknowledged and if you are seen and if you have the chance and the possibilities to start doing.
Yeah. And do you feel that you represent a very specific group of people who you want to help get a seat at the table? You're not doing this for you.
No, because to be honest, like now, I don't earn a penny out of Nadia and Marijn Soek or a couscous bar.
Okay,
or
so that is also a change that we need to work towards, right?
No, yeah, I sometimes think that people do too much for money. So my objective is not to be rich. My objective is to have a lot of fun in my life and to lead a happy life. And then you can do all this stuff and build on things, but then you have to drive an old car and live in Almere.
Which is a great place to live.
Yeah. So, but if you do that, then you can do other stuff. It's not like you can't do it all.
Yeah.
And sometimes people miss that spot. They think, you work on television, so that's why you can do all this stuff. No, that's just a little reminder. No, but what was the question? Because
so who do you feel you
represent?
Or who would you? Who do you feel is underrepresented at the table at the moment?
Bicultural Dutch people, because I can still hear. Recently, I sat in the taxi after the Black Achievement Awards with Sharon, who was nominated. Sharon, my colleague at Binnenste Buiten and the chef at Food Forum here in Almere, and we were in a car, and the person driving us said, I was the only Dutch person. Okay, so that's still people of color, people with a bicultural origins. They are still being seen as not really Dutch.
Yeah.
So I think for that group, but at the same time, when I'm in Amsterdam, I feel I represent people that come from out of Amsterdam. When I'm in on the countryside, then I feel like I'm representing the people from the city. So it's always, that's, I think, being bicultural.
Yeah.
From young, being bicultural leaves you like sensitive for feeling all that kind of stuff and being able to connect people, because I am both.
Yeah. Can it also leave you desensitized? So could it also work the other way around, or?
No, I think when you are really well rooted, so I always say I'm really well rooted in Winterswijk, so I'm a real Winterswijkse. And when you're well rooted, if it's for a tree or a person, then even if there's a storm or it shakes you up a bit and you leave your leaves every fall, but then when spring comes, you're back again.
Yeah.
So no, for me, it's something that made me stronger.
Yeah.
And I feel like those are the people that I like to represent or to do my best for.
And when it comes to a product line like Souk, do you also feel that you have to represent the producers, the farmers, and that they get a decent salary out of their...
Yeah, because if you leave it up to the supermarkets, then they always want to take even more than their share that they already do, but then they want to take even more. And then it really takes a lot of willpower to say, so no, we're not taking the price of I'm not going to pay less to the producer just because you buy more of their stuff. No, you buy more of their products, they should earn more because it's their credit. It's fantastic that they can do this.
Yeah.
And especially if you know, like, our products come from Palestine, from Lebanon, from small producers, family producers. They put in a lot of effort to be able to produce for us because it's huge amounts. If you have to supply for all the supermarkets, it's really like a lot.
And are they dependent on this channel? So if for instance, Albert Heijn would stop selling these products, would that be a big challenge for these producers?
Yeah, and not in all countries. Like in Morocco, it's okay. But for Lebanon, and there's a big crisis there now.
Yeah.
So we know that our European euros are really the money that keeps them floating. Because their own lira is like collapsing, their economy is collapsing. So from their inner market, they can't survive.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel so? And you feel that responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think you can sort of share that responsibility with Albert Heijn as well? Do they feel something?
No, I don't think they're really open. They don't look at their products. They sell those products in their own supermarkets, but it's not really how they look at it.
And are we naive to be frustrated by that, or?
No, I think we are right to be frustrated by that, because before I didn't really understand why there were so many Unilever, Nestle products in a supermarket. Now I understand. Because it's really almost undoable to get a product line in the Albert Heijn and to not go bankrupt.
Yeah. Is it difficult for you to so you have that seat at the table with a big supermarket like Albert Heijn, and they're constantly trying to push down the price?
Not constantly, they do it once or twice a year. But at the same time, we were really like in a lucky phase because they were moving towards more Middle Eastern Arabic products and there weren't any suppliers. So then you're lucky because then you have like a head start. And then the consumers really like our products and really buy them. So then you have a vote. Then you have a bit more to say. And fortunately, like, I'm not the only one. So I'm with Marijn. We are 50% of our brand, but also our other shareholders, like Brand M, they are with the same mindset. They're in this with the same mindset. So 100% fantastic tasting, good products, and we want to be good for our producers without certificates or name dropping or whatever. Like, we do it intrinsically, or how do you call it? Really, for us, it's part of the way we work. And for a lot of our producers, it is too expensive to be labeled or certified. So,
Okay. So talking about labels, you also have a collaboration with Fairtrade Original. I think we have a video on that we could have a look to introduce.
Yeah, it was in the same time. So we knew the supermarket was really busy.
Yeah.
Because I started working with Fair Trade Originals, and at the same time they asked us for souk.
So let's have a look at the video and then we'll talk about that.
Ja.
Wat is nou eigenlijk het verschil tussen kebab, gyros, wat heb je nog meer, shawarma?
Ja,
Hoe zit dat nou?
Kufte.
Ja.
Nee, wat het eigenlijk is, in de hele Arabische wereld
Ja?
heb je geroosterd vlees van de barbecue.
Ja.
Zeg maar, van de houtskool. Ja. En eigenlijk ligt het eraan in welk land je bent hoe het heet. Dus in het Midden-Oosten heet het kebab.
Ja?
In Griekenland heet het gyros. En in Marokko heet het kufta. Of choua.
Dus eigenlijk gaat het niet per se om de hoofdingrediënten, maar echt meer om de smaken.
Ja, de smaakmakers. Dus meestal het basisingrediënt wat voor de meeste kebab of kufte-achtige dingen wordt gebruikt is lamsvlees.
Ja.
Maar ja, met oesterzwammen net zo lekker. Met knolselderij heerlijk. Met jackfruit ook heel lekker. Dus er zijn meerdere manieren van lekkere spiesjes maken.
Yes.
Maar het grote verschil tussen de smaakmakers bij al die verschillende landen en streken is dat als je in Noord-Afrika bent, dus Marokko, Tunesië, dan is het kruidig gecombineerd met zoet.
Ja.
Dus je hebt kruidige specerijen gecombineerd met gedroogd fruit, abrikoosjes, pruimen, rozijnen. Dat is heel erg Marokko. Dan ga je naar Tunesië, Libië, dan wordt het pittig. Dan komt de harissa bij en komen de chilipepers bij. Ga je doorreizen en dan kom je bij het Midden-Oosten en dan komt er opeens allemaal zuur bij. Dus krijg je sumac, citroensap, weer andere kruidencombinaties. En ik vind dat je dat heel goed proeft in deze kruidenpasta.
Ja.
Die heet Midden-Oosters
Ja.
en dat proef je terug.
Ja.
En dat komt door het specerijenmengsel. Dus baharat.
En wat is dan specifiek dan het kruidenmengsel wat we voor kebab uit het Midden-Oosten gebruiken?
Ja, op de verpakking heet het baharatkruiden. Maar baharat is eigenlijk gewoon specerijen in het Arabisch. En de Midden-Oosterse baharatkruiden, daar de hoofdrolspeler in is piment.
So this was just a very short excerpt of a larger show. You already had the product line of souk. Why was it important to also start working with Fair Trade Original?
It was the product line souk was at that time only at Markt. And Fair Trade Originals asked me if I wanted to cooperate with them on those pastes, working together with organic farmers in Morocco or farmers that they were helping towards farming organically. And that's so close to my heart, I couldn't resist. And then afterwards, it appeared that souk was going into the same supermarkets as Fair Trade Originals. And at the same time, what I really like about it is that we cooperate together quite often, like on the shop floor, in actions, marketing or whatever. And you see it rarely that two different brands work together. But for me, it's very logical because the end consumer doesn't know that you are different brands. They just want to cook Middle Eastern or want to cook tasty food, and then you help them in this way.
Yeah.
And now it feels like we are really supporting each other.
Yeah, that feels nice.
And it feels good.
Yeah. I'm curious then, so you have sort of a sense, when you start making a paste like this, one of these products, you have a sense personally of what the taste should be. And I can imagine that differs from what the average consumer in a Dutch supermarket would appreciate. Is there a gap between what you like in your food and what you produce for the supermarket?
Souk. No, to be honest, no. And I can explain it why. Because I really think that the Dutch consumer in general so open for different tastes. We always say like, oh, the Dutch, they don't eat what they don't know, blah, blah, blah. It's so not true. If you go to Italy or Morocco, they hardly eat food from outside their own culture and sometimes even outside their own region. And the Netherlands, the Dutch people are really open towards other foods, and they are quite educated on the part of foods from outside their own community. So no, what we found out, like, I love food in high acidity, like really sour tastes. When I cook, I won't cook as sour that I like it myself, or not that fiery hot that I like sometimes. So of course you mellow it a bit, but it's not for the supermarket, but cooking for a lot of people, you always put in a bit less salt, a bit less sour, a bit less heat. And it doesn't make it less tasty or less authentic. It just makes it more palatable for a big group of people. But it still remains what's authentic with food, but so-called authentic.
Yeah, we could dive in that rabbit hole and then spend another hour. Yeah. Okay, and then so when what we talked about earlier in terms of the changes that you want to help attain with these products is a better income for the farmers and the producers. Are there other societal changes that you hope to contribute to?
Well, like it sounds like a weird reason, but for me, for example, I really love the fact that we have good tasting Moroccan products in the supermarket as a sort of opposite to Mokro Mafia and all the negative that we talk about when we talk about Dutch Moroccans. Yeah. And for me personally, it feels really nice to have something tasty and good looking and colorful and happy as like a contra.
So you feel responsible as a representative of Dutch Moroccan culture.
Yeah, I didn't know this. It was like, I don't know even when it was, like a year or two ago or something. And then it like occurred to me like, okay, this is what I really like about it. And of course, I love it. The fact that Dutch young children grow up with couscous and harissa and pomegranate molasses from their parents cooking food from the supermarket. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the layer underneath, for me personally, that makes me really want to put in some extra work and effort is, I think, the positive connotation.
And do you receive feedback or signs that is working?
Yeah. Because that's also, it's so funny if you make mistakes. Like we have our bread is vacuum packed, but because we don't have any additives in the bread, sometimes you get mold because there can be like one little hole in the packaging made by unboxing it or whatever, and then it gets mold. So people at home open their pack and then they find molded bread. Now, frustrating, I presume. And then we get an email. Oh, we are so in love with your product, but we opened the bread and crap, all molded. And then we explain, Marijn and I, usually Marijn, but me too, sometimes we answer the mail back and then personally. And then we say, sorry, you're right, but we are really doing our best, but we really want to produce bread without any additives. And because of that, it can develop mold. It's always like positive PR afterwards. Then we send them a package and like more than 9 out of 10 times we get a positive reply because we are honest and open, and it's clear, like for everybody, if you make bread without any additives, of course it can go wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting that something has to go wrong before you receive positive feedback like that. So you have to send out some moldy bread every once in a while.
Yeah, sometimes it happens, and then it was the same with the harissa, the pepper paste. If you use dirty spoons or don't use it hygienically, because that's what it is, it can develop mold. Yeah, and that's also because we don't do crazy stuff with it. And then you can have like communication, interaction with your consumers, and you can tell them to put a layer of olive oil in it or to eat it more often, mix it with mayonnaise and put it in your sandwich.
Yeah.
And discussions and talks like that make the consumer and the producer, they get together.
Yeah.
Like communication is all, even like through a package, through packaged food in a supermarket, there can be personal communication.
Yeah.
And if people feel it, or you give it back, or we receive it, it really helps. It helps us to get to make a better product.
Yeah.
And for the consumer, it feels like, oh, I know this person that makes my food.
Yeah. Interesting. It's similar to, that last year I worked as I sold organic dairy from a local farmer in Amsterdam East, and sometimes, like, a lot of people would be very enthusiastic about our product, but sometimes, for instance, now we have some challenges with the buttermilk, that the taste is a little off sometimes, and we don't know for sure what that's about. But then, so people come and they complain at first, but then we tell them, because it's coming from one farm and it's not as processed as normal milk, there's always variety in the quality,
you don't know what about it
and the taste. Yeah. So, and then that's all of a sudden that's a positive experience and a positive conversation.
Yeah, but it's also through you.
Yeah.
Because there is this personal connection.
Yeah.
And then if it's only a brand in a supermarket that where there's no real people behind it, because we are really not a marketing brand. We are who we are. We are the products that you buy. We made the spice blends ourselves. We make our own harissas, and so the products either come from people that we know, or the products are made by ourselves.
Yeah.
So it is personal. It's a personal change.
I think we're really inching our way towards the end of this conversation already. So I want to see if we have some questions, and we do. So maybe just start off with the first one. How do you keep your Moroccan food culture here in the Netherlands with Dutch products?
Well, life is made easier because of the availability of a lot of products nowadays. Before, it was really difficult to get your hands on products, like orange flower water. It wasn't available in the Netherlands except 100% chemical one. And then it's more difficult. But now it's easier than ever to get your hands on products, even if you live in a small town in the Netherlands. And I'm also a believer that food heritage is not a brick. So it develops and it evolves and it changes. Like food traditions always change, are always under influence of the time that you live in, on the area that you live in. So for me, it's the Moroccan food that I cook, for me, is Moroccan because it's rooted in the food traditions of my grandmother and grandparents. But it's also Moroccan because I feel I identify myself as half Moroccan. So it is Moroccan.
Yeah. And you feel that you can cook out of that heritage with local products.
Yeah, like we worked together on Ark van Smaak, or I cooperated on your book. But for me, it's really logical to use the vegetables and fruits and the produce that are locally sourced and in season here.
Yeah.
And I use Moroccan tastes or Moroccan cooking techniques to make a Moroccan couscous. But it's still Moroccan, even if it's made with like 100% Dutch food ingredients.
Yeah.
It's the best way of eating Moroccan food in the Netherlands.
And do you feel that you, if you speak to other people who come from Dutch Moroccan culture, do they feel the same way, or do they sometimes feel that the couscous has to come from where they're from?
Yeah, there are just two kinds of people, the rigid ones and the open-minded ones, and they're everywhere. So I recently started with TikTok. Yeah, really. Don't ask me how this all started, but it started somewhere. And sometimes you read the reactions and it's so funny. People can go berserk on the way I pronounce a word. But there is no way.
On TikTok?
Yeah, on TikTok. Young people.
Like what?
Like a shakshuka. Nadia, you can't be Moroccan because the way you pronounce shakshuka is really off. And then I like, there is no mum that cooks the same as the other mum. There is no potato that tastes the same today as it did a year ago. So there is no one way to say things. Dialects differ, food traditions differ from time to time, from place to place. So there is no one rigid way to make things. So if I say that I am Moroccan, then my food is Moroccan.
Yeah, but you seem to be able to convince people every once in a while. I remember a story that you told me about working with women from Morocco and talking about baking bread. Again, the bread as a sort of a really central piece of food identity.
Yeah.
And talking about where does the grain have to
come from to be Moroccan bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You convinced them, right?
Yeah. Because for me, it's really the technique, and that's the same with couscous. Couscous now is acknowledged as UNESCO World Heritage, and what I like about that is that they acknowledge the traditions, so the techniques, the oral traditions, the way of preparing it, the technique, and not so much it has to be like this or that.
Yeah.
Because the couscous that they prepare in Israel, made by former Moroccan and Algerian Tunisians, or in Tunis, it's very spicy couscous, or in a coastal town or in a mountain town, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And you cannot say that's a good couscous or proper couscous and that or not. But the techniques and the traditions and the stories that are behind them, if you preserve those, and if you acknowledge it, where that came from, and you take that with you in your life now or in your cooking ways now, it can still be a proper way to make a couscous.
Yeah.
Or bread. And they are with me. Because then I told them, okay, the Moroccan bread that you buy in the Dutch Moroccan bakeries has nothing to do with the with like the farmer Moroccan breads that are made with a sourdough and with just milled grains.
Yeah. We have 2 more questions. Let's see if we can get to at least one more of them, and then we are heading into the closing of this conversation.
It's always too short.
It's always too short. I think this one is interesting, talking about consumer habit perspective. To change habits, you will need to discover new flavors, this person says. What can we do to invite consumers to discover new flavors?
Well, for that, it's easy to have a television show and a magazine and all those kind of stuff. Then you inspire, hopefully you inspire people to cook outside of the box. And at the same time, yes, it's very difficult to change people's behavior. Mm-hmm. And cooking patterns and shopping patterns. But at the same time, we also know that people change their behavior the moment they go out of their parents' houses to study and live on themselves, when they get children, when the children leave the house. So or when you get ill, there are moments in your life that you change your food habits. Mm. Or food patterns, or you add or you take some off. So if you can focus on that kinds of changes and in an inspirational, delicious way, then I believe that people go with you. And sometimes you have to see it. So that's where the television and the books and the supermarket floor comes in. Like when people see it and they notice it because of the pricing actions or because of a recipe in a magazine, then they go, oh, sounds yummy, let's give it a try.
Yeah, and also tasting it.
And what I'm sure of is when you taste it and it tastes good, then you come back.
Yeah, absolutely. So each time you recognize that there's a platform or a show or a book or an interview that you can share something new, you see it as an opportunity to broaden the Dutch flavor profile.
Yeah, absolutely. And people do it themselves as well. Yeah. So when you visit your friends or family and they serve you something new, And then you go, oh, nice. The next time when you see it in the supermarket, you likely grab it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just made kimchi this morning with my students.
Wow.
And a few of them had already tasted it, a few
Yeah.
of them already made it, but there was a substantial part of the group that never heard of it. So
But
so for
how do you make it more easier for them to try it? Do you make like comparisons with sauerkraut or with
no,
zuko?
we just
You
but,
leave it.
but we for this lesson we invited a friend of ours, a guest lecturer for this opportunity, Marina Young, who comes out of theater, but she also does a lot of culinary events. So she really just took them on a journey.
Okay.
And she started off
She
with
inspires them.
really,
Yeah. That's also a way. Yeah.
which is also a great bridge to my final questions. I'm also interested if we specifically look at ethically and sustainably sourcing the herbs and spices and similar products. So you've come a long way in bringing that into Dutch supermarkets, but I'm also interested. Do you look for inspiration with other companies or other people around the world, and what would?
Yeah, like for now, it's small steps for us because there's this big gap between pricing and what we can do. So I really like a company like Diaspora Spices in the US. I would love to be able to source my spices the way they do, with really name and number with every product that they really know their spice farmer. For us, I don't know my spice farmers. I know our spice leverancier,
Trader?
our spice trader. We blend our own spices. So there are still a lot of steps that we can take. And what I aspire and look up to are companies like Diaspora, for example, and they also let us see what is possible.
Yeah.
So, okay, for now, maybe not, but if we want to go there, what do we need to do and which steps do we need to take to get there? So sometimes you have to be realistic as well and then see what you can do now in the area and in the place that we are in now and do it as good as possible. And then baby steps get it even better.
Yeah. I think because you're also on the board of Low Food.
Yeah.
You're organizing on the 21st of November another
Symposium,
event.
Organized by Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
Very well known to both of us. And Melissa is putting on a program that's so inspiring, and everybody in the Netherlands who wants to know more about Dutch food culture now and before.
Yeah.
And is interested in spices and the stories behind spices should really join us. I think there are still some tickets left.
Yep.
It's at Rijks. So great location. Historically also very beladen.
Beladen.
Oh, it's so difficult speaking English to somebody that you are used to speaking Dutch to. But no, everybody who's interested in Dutch food culture and spices should really come.
And you will be there as well.
We are there as well.
Yeah. So if you want to get in touch with Nadia, either go to the symposium or send a complaint to Soek, so you know either Marijn or Nadia will answer that email.
Absolutely.
Nadia, I want to thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Maarten.
Answering some questions, and always a pleasure to talk with you about food.
Thank you.